Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hiring for your small business? If you're not looking for professionals on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. That's like looking for your car keys in a fish tank. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So start looking in the right place. With LinkedIn, you can hire professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LISTEN to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code LISTEN at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com, code LISTEN.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
I would dearly hope that some of that would come back. Do you understand? Jimmy McGuinness was on the telly one night. Like, what he achieved with Donegal was immense. But he went on about the sacrifices that the players made. And I was talking to Brian Cody first thing the next morning. And Brian would be of the same ilk as myself. Like, hang on, if you want to play, you play. That's it.
I don't know about you, Mary, but I'm feeling very settled here now in Allenwood.
I nearly feel like I live in Allenwood. I've spent so much time in it lately, and it definitely feels like a home away from home. I love driving into the village and then heading out here to Dundara. There's just something lovely about coming out to the Kildare countryside, and a lovely village, a really beautiful village, just a lovely place to record our podcast.
And you know, geographically, obviously, we're in the heart of the Bog of Allen, and Allenwood has a background tied to the development of peat bogs in the region. But I know from talking with Enda, our producer, who's here from that community, that the spirit is very strong in Allenwood, and at the heart of it is the local GAA club.
And that's nothing unusual in Ireland, because the GAA is literally the heartbeat of so many communities, towns, villages all around Ireland, and indeed a lot further afield. And it brings a lot of joy, a lot of purpose to life, a lot of togetherness. It's an integral part of our culture, isn't it? And our society. It's a kind of social glue that holds us together, brings us together, like this one here in Allenwood, but all around the country. Now, I know you're a dub.
Okay,
Go
well
on.
now,
Yes,
full
you're a dub.
disclosure, I'm a dub sitting here in Kildare, and we are about to chat with a Meath legend about Gaelic football.
I think you could be in danger. We could all be in danger here.
No, I don't think so, because what we do know about this man is that he is an absolute gentleman. Sean Boylan, you are very welcome to our Changing Time studio.
Thank you very much indeed. I had extraordinary memories when I was coming here today, because when I was a very young man working with my father at home with the herbs, we collected an awful lot of herbs around Allenwood. And herbs particularly like Meadow Street and so on, or Sweet Meadow, as some people call it, a beautiful name. It's probably a nicer name, the Philippendula. And we would collect it around here. But the people where we would collect it, they would mind it for the year for us. It's it amongst some of them. Then there was another herb called Blackhead, and we would collect it as well. And it was at the same time every year that you came. And at that stage, Allenwood was not as big as Allenwood is today. And there were a couple of great things about it, because I remember many years ago, a really dear friend of mine, and she was probably as contrary a person as ever I dealt with, a very good friend, and could never figure out what was wrong. So she asked me about something one day, and I said, do you know what you'll do now? I said, go to Clane, you know where the hospital is? She said, I do. And we'll go out the Prosperous Road, yes. And I said, come on to the Bog of Allen. And she said, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to go off your shoes and socks, and I want you to go and walk in your bare feet in the peat. Why? I want to earth you. Are you mad? No, I'm not mad. I said, will you do me a favour now? Don't ask me any more questions. Just go and do it. So she brought a friend with her. She rang me 2 days later, and she said, would you mind if I go back? And a really interesting thing was she had an inherited thyroid symptom. It turned out she was an endocrinologist herself. People went to her because she was so brilliant with the condition, because she knew it so well. And all she needed to do to earth her in the spring and in the autumn was to go on her bare feet in the peat, and it earthed her.
What does that mean, to be earthed?
Earth. It's, well, we have a son. When he was born, no matter what you did with him, what's next? And that went on. And when he went to school, the teachers would say, would you put down your hand? Someone else could put up their hand. And he was getting into trouble. And this day I said to Tina, Tina said, listen, I want to go to the Canaries. Oh, that's great. For 5 days. I want to bring Dara with us. For what? She said, I want to earth him. Are you mad? And no, sir, I'm not. And she's psychiatrically trained, so you can understand what she was thinking. So we went to the Canaries. We went 3 times in the 1 year for 5 days. But after 24 hours, when he was there, he was totally different. And the reason was he was induced. It was the Monday or Tuesday before the All-Ireland final 1996. He was born. So we're in with
Is everything in your house? So everything is determined by All-Ireland finals.
Yeah. So we're in the hospital, in the Coombe. It couldn't be nicer. And the doc came in, great man. 40 seconds, baby, about 40 minutes football. He was from Oldcastle, right? And but seriously, Tina was great. She was fine. But the next day, he said, gosh, Tina, I don't know. He said, I can't have this hanging over Tina. You think it was a disease, do you understand? But just as they start to induce, he was born in a hurry. And very often when you go and you walk into the seawater, the Atlantic water particularly, it's full of sulfur, iodine, magnesium, and manganese. And those trace elements, they settle them. And the same happens when you have people with a thyroid condition. And particularly when it can be hypo, I think go overactive or underactive. It's part of nature, and that's the way it is. It just settles the people.
It's just instinctive with you, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's full. It's this area here. It's full of that. So when you talked about the energy in the place, like even if you go down to the football fields, down to the far fields, like that peaty soil is there. You know what I mean? And
would people have known that going way back generations, long before we'd have doctors and hospitals? Would they have known the value of those things, do you think?
They did, but what happened, Mary, was that families had different ones, or different cures or remedies, and they minded them, they protected them. They handed them down from generation to generation. And I remember one day we were in Enfield, and we suddenly realised the warmest day we had. It was incredible, not just 75, and nobody brought the water. And I said, hang on, lads. And I went over to the wood, right? And I started picking the sorrel. And I started chewing it. And it quenches the thirst. It looks after the oxalic acid. It helps the saliva. And all the boys said, Jesus Christ. And they played really well. So they began to think that we really need to bring this stuff to all the matches.
Every time.
But like, it's funny. Like, it was like people, they nearly knew what to do. And this Allenwood area, like the memories that we would have had, just down the road, there used to be a go-kart track. It was on the road, and it was a triangle. And we drove go-karts in the 60s, the early 60s. And it was for fundraisers for the school. And it's hard to believe that went on for 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because...
all in this little village, really.
All these
There's
little
so much character.
Ironically after then, sort of Mandela came and that took over all of that and so forth.
In your own life, Sean, if I'm right, didn't you say at some stage that I read somewhere that you said your life changed at 17? What was that all about?
I was in Warnerstown. It was an agricultural college, and I was 5 or 6 weeks into the course, and I was in Cluny, the local village, on a Sunday morning. And Father Collins, who was the rector, legend in Irish agriculture. Now, he wasn't the headmaster, so he wasn't dealing directly with us. And I said hello to him. I was coming home again for a match. And he said, Sean, isn't it? I said, it is, Father. So he went out to his car, and he came back in. He said, Sean, could I talk to you for a moment? He said, are you getting these remedies or cures from your father? Father Collins said, do you mind if I speak to Brother James? Now, Brother James O'Hare, he's in Celbridge now, he's Salesian. His mother was 106. She was from Warren Point. And he's very near the 100 mark himself. But he and Father Tom Kenny were the two first clerics who got degrees in agriculture with a horticultural extension. What he said, I talked to Brother James about you. Now, there were 2 scholarships to the place. One was a county council one, and one was called the Matilda Lynch Trust. So that meant that the college could decide what they wanted to do with the person. I was fortunate enough to get one of them. So from then, for the end of the year, I did 3 days ag, 3 days hort. Oh, now, wasn't that some vision? Yeah. November 1960. It was incredible. And so it also broadened the horizon. Like the value of the soil was like gold. There was grand, you had your animals and your machinery and everything else, but what that was. So at the end of the year, we got a phone at home. I rang home and Daddy answered the phone. I thought it was somebody messing. And then I ran back and I realised that he actually is much older than I thought he was. He was 80, I was 17. He was 28 years older than my mother. And wow. I never heard them fight. I never heard them row. He was a general in the army. I never heard him give an instruction. Ask your mother. Ask your mother. Nobody couldn't go wrong, you know what I mean? But I just said to him, look, I'm coming home to give you a hand for a few weeks. And all he said was very good. And that was the start of me doing what I've done from that day to this. But as a young man, I would never have expected. Until I was 37, I wanted to be a Cistercian monk. I was a great man to socialise. I was at home. I worked in the morning and night and put my dad in and out of bed. He had Parkinson's. Nothing was ever a bother. It was a joyous 11 years that we had until he died. Uh-huh. Now, this is not a boast. It's not a brag. It's not making him extra special. But there was something about him. And it fashioned me in a way that I know if I had a normal education, I probably never would have achieved. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And there was a wisdom, like, you know, when I always remember when Shawnee, the eldest lad, he was in the Guildhall. And they were every student in the Guildhall in London had to go for an audition. In Wandsworth was the music school at this stage. And Shawnee is asked, were any of your people ever here before? Shawnee said, in London, no, in Wandsworth. Oh, yes, he said, my grandfather was in jail. And 6 months later, Shawnee's the one that's asked to sing in Hisford Castle for Charles and Camilla. Do you know what I mean? So inside in the wall at home in the house, you know what I mean? There's Michael Collins, there's everything else, but there's a letter from Charles and Camilla to Shawnee. Do you know what I mean?
And
that's the way it was. You were brought up in a way like that. He was never judgmental. You were allowed to be your own person.
But he was a patriot.
Yeah, there's no question. Like where we live at home, they came there in 1798 and the house was burnt in Dunboyne, as well as 85 other houses. My great-great-grandmother lived a quarter mile across the fields, and the day after they paid the rent in 1798, they were evicted off the farm and they were sent to Van Diemen's Land. And I got a phone call about 4 years ago from a great historian called Mick Kenny. He was on the board of Kilmainham. And Mick said to me, are you in bed, Sean? No, I said, I'm not, Mick. Where are you? I said, I'm coming out of Thurles. What are you doing coming out of Thurles? I was doing the talk down there. Jeez, you're an awful man. Did you get your tea? No, so Mick, I didn't. But when he came up with an historical fact, he had a 24-hour clock. It didn't matter whether it was morning, noon or night. Hey, he said, listen, he said, do you want me to ask you? You know those relations of yours that went to Van Diemen's Land? We've come across the Peter Glenn. Well, as a matter of fact, she said, we've come across 2 of them. One's a huge sheep farmer and the other's a convict. Well, I said, that's our man. That's certainly right. But it's funny. And that's the way, I'm saying all that because that's the way sort of your life has been. But
it's part of your makeup.
It really is, Mary. And I was up north. 57 times I'd gone up to see somebody who was very ill. It was a kid with an adrenal problem. The herbs were helping her greatly. And at 10 o'clock the next morning, I knew she was going to be okay. And I drove down and I came down through Colin and I went up into the monastery. And I parked the car, this huge monk, he was in Texas and he was called Gillicrease. He put out the big hand to me, he said, you pray for me and I'll pray for you. And I went into church, and I think they were at Matins, I don't know what the monks were at, but something happened. And from then on, I needed God in the world. And then I was happy, and then I was contented. And that was you just get on with your life.
And Sean, your 5th generation herbalist.
Yes.
And did that just kind of evolve in you from the time you were a little child? You know, this knowledge of herbs and helping your dad and looking after people like that young girl.
From the time we were kids, people would be coming to the house. they come for bottles. And the 4 traditional remedies that came from Tara: osteoarthritis, kidney and heart condition called dropsy, tuberculosis, and a chest bottle. At the time, there was no such thing as bronchitis or bronchiectasis or anything. It was a chest problem back in those days. And so people came to the house at different times of the year, go up to Boylan's and get a bottle. And then my dad was involved in an explosion in 1919. There was a man called Matt Furlong from Exeter. He lost his leg and he lost his arm. And Father Clancy and himself. And my dad was got in the jawbone. And they were in the Mater. Matt Furlong died in the Mater from shock and hemorrhage. And my dad cycled to a meeting in Trim, which was 28 miles away, 1919. The older man told me afterwards he got on the bike about 5 o'clock in the morning. He left Trim and he went to Hollywood in the County Wicklow. And that was his area Eastern Command down to there. 4 years later, he was asked to go over Chief of Staff. And he had a year to live. In Brickens, they gave him ether to drink to try and kill the pain in his head. And just all the poison had gone through him. And they were talking about him. They thought he was asleep. And they said he'd have about a year to live. And he turned back the clothes and he stepped out of the bed. And they're saying, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going home." "You can't do that." He said, "Look, I'm very thankful for your help, but maybe you haven't got all the knowledge." And he made a study. In 1957, he got married. His first wife dropped dead. And a couple of years later, he met my mother. And they met at a funeral in Clune, Leitrim. And the man was a Father Conifrey. He was a very famous Irish patriot. And they were great friends of Sean McDermott. And Sean McDermott and my father met in 1908. They were friends from that time. The day after Father Conifrey's funeral, he went to Drumshambo, the convent in Drumshambo. There was a sister of his first wife there. And he went to see Philomena. And his brother Joe was driving him. And they left there then. They came home. In Clune, he'd been staying with people by the name of Pope. And Sonny Pope, there was Black Sonny and Red Sonny, and there was Molly. And Molly's friend was Gertie. And they went for petitions to the convent on the Sunday. The popes all went in, including Gertie, to see Sister Philomena, and the Mother Abbess was there.
This is in the Poor Clare convent.
In the Poor Clare convent. And when they were gone, Sister Philomena said, "Mother," she said, "I don't know what it is about Gertie. I think she'd be very right for Sean." And a fortnight later, my mother came to Dublin.
Who needs Lister Varna?
And he brought her. They went to Wynn's Hotel and they went round the corner and he bought her an engagement ring. She was told that evening there was going to be a war.
Oh my good Lord.
There was going to be war. And she wanted to go to Lourdes and he wanted to go to Rome because Vatican State was the first state to recognise the Irish state.
Of course it was.
Right? They got married in June of 1939. The twins were born in February 41 and there were 6 of us. But I tell the story because in 57 he got a bad viral pneumonia, and with the problem from the lower brain cells, it set off with Parkinson's.
Oh dear!
And he went over to Sale in Cheshire to do Dr. McLean, and Mr. McLean was a famous neurologist, and he had invented a drug called Artane, which was the first breakthrough in the treatment of Parkinson's, and it helped the rigidity, and the problem was taken off the markets afterwards because the drug boys got it. And they took it, and then, of course, the muscles never recovered. But anyhow, there were terrible side effects from it. And he was really confident that he could counteract the side effect. And he bought a 7-year supply. And 7 years later, I bought him another 7-year supply, right? And I always remember Dr. Cooney, he was his doctor, and his pal, his friend. And he would always talk about whatever you're taking, so that's how he got. He lived to be 91, and that was that. So remember, after he died, I couldn't settle. This was 72. I went back to study. I was going to do medicine, and then I got an interview with a man called Fred Fletcher Hyde in Leicester University. And Fred Fletcher Hyde was a famous herbalist, but he was the physician of the Queen. He and Hans Celestra, they interviewed me for a course that they were running, a herbal degree course under the medical faculty in Leicester University. And when the interview was over, they said, "Will you give some talks for us?" And that was the start of a whole new world. And then,
are you still involved in all that now today?
I am.
Or have you retired?
Yeah, I am.
Have you handed it over to some of the kids? Have some of the children taken it on?
They're exactly the same as we were as children. People came in, you gave a hand, you went out and helped with the herbs. Originally, you could gather them wild everywhere. Then we had to start to grow them. And they all have an extraordinary knowledge of it. And Kieran said 3 years ago, he said, "Look, 3 years in May. I come in and give a hand with you. And then he went off and did a doctorate. You know what I mean? But like...
And do they have the same feel for it as you obviously do?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, I would say so.
So it's passing on to the next generation?
Yeah, like, and it's in different ways or different aspects of it.
How big a help was that to the Meath football team whenever when
if you
got
won, it wasn't so
with
bad
them?
when you were beating all them, gave them the wrong bottles. Well, I tell you, Mary McAleese is an extraordinary thing. Conor Laverty and Marty Clark, they wanted to have a go at the down under 20s a couple of years ago, 2021. And it was felt that they hadn't enough experience. And I'd be friends with the two lads. And they said, listen, will you come in with us? I said, let me think about it. I said to the kids at home, I said, you're doing nothing, you might as well, right? And because it was after COVID. And so I went up, and as I go into the Abbey in Uri, I meet Brendan Hughes, who was a great goalkeeper for town. And the first thing Brendan said, Shawnee, do you mind me asking you? He said, why did you bring Rourke on earlier in 1991? Colin Rourke had a viral pneumonia, lost 15 pounds.
I never forget it. We were there.
You were?
We were.
Look, it was, but again, if we were good enough, we'd have won it. And that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But like, the most important thing, he was
Jimmy,
right.
you gave us a good run. You gave the Down ones a mighty run. I have to as well tell you that day, Colin O'Rourke was a great neighbour of ours. We were were County Meath people, had been County Meath people, great friends of Colin's, and he had given our kids jerseys, Meath jerseys, but of course they were reared in the Down tradition, so they're there in the red and black. And there was a moment, do you remember, when Meath might have won, and I could see the hands getting ready to whip off the Down jerseys and to have the winning jersey on. But anyway, the Down jersey stayed on, thank God.
Incredible,
those were fabulous years.
They were amazing years. And
did you start as a hurler though? Did I hear that you were a hurler first? Were you?
I was always a hurler.
You were always a hurler?
Yeah, like at 17 I played senior hurling for Meath. We were senior until 1969. Then I went down to intermediate. And I was on the team for 20 years, never off it. And 4 times I got picked for the footballers. Wasn't interested, it was hurling mad. I got footballer of the year at the club 3 times. I played club football.
Yes.
But I was hurling mad. And that was it. And when Shawnee started in Belvedere, Peter McAlesse and Barry Keogh became president of the IRFU that year, said if your father continued to play rugby, he'd have played for Ireland. Wasn't interested.
Mainly the hurling.
Yeah.
So the GAA, as well as the kind of the herbalism and all of that, the GAA was part of your life from a very young age as well, Sean.
Yeah, and even in the history, like when O'Ground's remains were brought home, and the hurlers of Dunboyne walked with Drape come on behind the cortege. You know what I mean? The hurling was, but the interesting thing about the hurling in Dunboyne was when they won 5 senior championships, the man who coached them was a man called Bob O'Keefe, who was a young school teacher who went to Boriston, Austria afterwards, and Captain Leash to win the only All-Ireland that they won. And he was from Mooncoin. And the Dunboyne team were the Black and Amber.
Oh, is that why?
That's the reason why.
No.
That's right, yeah.
Gosh.
23 years, like moving forward, 23 years as manager of the Meath team. And people say that you actually changed the game, Sean, that you changed with regard to training methods and the way you treated the players. And, tell us a little bit about that.
I suppose when I took it, there was nobody to do the job. Jerry McEndy, Desi Ferguson, God bless him, Mick O'Brien and Matty Kerrigan couldn't do the job. So there was no one to do it. And I was free. I was finished. I'd given up. Like my last year, I was player manager of Meath Hurlers. And I often said, what am I going to do? And a man who captained the first Meath team to win the All-Ireland, Brian Smith, asked me. And I said, Brian, you off your head? And he said, no, think about it. We talked about it. So I left him. He was going down to a meeting in Trim. And 12:30 at night, I went back up. And he did the devil's advocate for about 2 hours. And then I said, right, I'll take it for a few months until you get somebody. Wanted somebody from the county. And that was really what it was. But I never had any notions about it or pretense about it. I suppose I always knew that sort of fitness was something you couldn't store. It's something you had to work on. You had a great bunch of players who could play well for 5 or 10 minutes. Well, if you can, if you keep at it, you'll do it for longer.
If only the matches lasted 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's right. And then we were very fortunate in the first year we got promotion to Division 1. We played Dublin in the first round of the Leinster Championship, and it was a draw match. And the replay should have been held in Navan. And I asked to play in Croke Park. I felt that we'd be playing in there a lot. And the county board went along with it. Now, it would have meant a lot to the town, Navan, a lot of people coming. So I said, look, if we do well, because we're playing the first round of the league in Navan, we'll have a great crowd. Anyhow, Dublin won in extra time, and they went on to win the All-Ireland. And their first match, having won the All-Ireland, with the Dirty Dozen, as they called it, was down in Navan. There were 29,000 people.
Whoa, your prophecy
And that
came
was
true.
but that was the start of sort of that flow. And then we had a great year in 84, and 1985 we were hammered, and hammered by Laois. And we did the kitchen one night, and sitting in the kitchen was Mick and Pádraig Lyons, Jerry McEntee, Liam Hayes, Joe Castles and Colin O'Rourke. And you wouldn't see the lads drinking tea and eating brown bread with my mother, which she's smoking. Not once in her life did she ever go to a match or a training session. She wouldn't have an idea about it. And after about 5 minutes, the crack and the banter with her, now up the house now and sort things out. And we went up and talked about where we come from and talked about what I'd done with them. Wasn't so sure that I had the ability to go further, or that they felt it. And Pádraig Lyons, you'll excuse me now, but Pádraig said, Sean, will you put your shyness in your arse pocket? And I said, Pádraig, do you mean that? And that was the start of a Meath team taking responsibility. There was, from then on, chairs around the circuit, there was no blame. No blame. It was like just...
Were you shy?
No, but what can we do? What can we do? It was amazing. It just changed everything.
But you were very respectful always of the players, and like, you know, the kind of the whole psychology of it came into play. Wasn't there something about that you liked them to train in Dalgan Park because the surrounding of the trees, and that probably goes back to your herbal roots as well. The energy. The energy is amazing.
The energy is amazing. Same as up in Tara, and you know, I remember the first winter. Because we were going to play Armagh in the All-Ireland, the National League semi-final. And it had been so wet, and the grounds of Meath were soggy. I said, we'll do some work over on the beach in Bettystown. So Des Smith got us into the golf club to change. And then we went out on the beach, and we did all around the dunes, right? And I noticed a couple of the players missing a couple of times. The lads were lying down. They were missing out in the lap. So when I felt they were missing, I went over to the sea and I put on my clothes and said, come on, lads, we'll go in here. And I knew if I didn't, they'd throw me in. I can't swim. Right? And I just went, took a plunge in. And people said, look, he was mad. But there was method in it. And every year there was something different. And you know, 1990 or 2000, I should say, Galway and Kerry played in the All-Ireland final. I went to a replay. And in between the match, the junior match that was on before it, Sonia Sullivan did a lap of honour, having won the silver medal in Sydney. And afterwards, she's in the presidential suite. And everybody's going over to her. And Tina said, go over and say hello to her. I said, leave her alone, leave her alone. She said, go on over. So when she got quiet, and I went over to Sonia. And she jumped up and she put her arms around, my God, Sean, she said, isn't it a long time ago since I got the buoyancy aids for you, myself and Jerry O'Reilly. The man called Glenn McWalter in Atlanta in Georgia. He got them, they were making them there, and they cost 3,500, 27 of them. And we did all the training in water that year.
But you treated them well. A former Meath player told me, and when I was saying that we were going to have this conversation today, that for years and years and years, you used to bring them for tea and sandwiches after training. And it was nice, and cake. And was it in Ballinter House?
It was Ballinter House.
It was. And to this day, nobody knows who paid for it, but it wasn't you. Never a bit.
I got a directive in January 87, having won the Leinster for the first time in 16 years. No more meals for the players. They were going to do up Park Tolton. The money was needed for something else. So Jerry at this stage is working in as a consultant in Limerick. And Kevin Foley's a vet down in Wexford. So couldn't you imagine a cup of tea and a cup of tea and a couple of Marietta biscuits? They wouldn't go too far, right? So I remember driving up to Ballinter House, and the nuns were in it, the daughters of Sign, and powerful women. And I met Sister Maura, and I said, do you ever take crowd of rogues in, footballers in? She said, of course we do. And we were there for 6 weeks, and nobody from the county board arrived. And Galway beat us in the quarter-final of the league. And I went back to pay the bill, which was £960 sterling. And I said, could we come here for the championship? She said, is it not over? Oh, it's not. When will it be over? Could be over in June, could go till September. Oh, give me that shit. We'll fix it up again. 4-course meal every night for the last 20 years. It was
20 years?
20
My
years,
goodness.
20 years, 20 years.
And no expense.
It was the
Fair
most
taste.
wonderful place in the world. There was an energy in the place. There was parts of it you could stand and you could just feel the energy from Tara with it. Just me, incredible.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you? If people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else. Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
I'm Sandra, and I'm just the professional your small business was looking for. But you didn't hire me because you didn't use LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn has professionals you can't find anywhere else, including those who aren't actively looking for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role, like me.
In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you'll miss out on great candidates like Sandra. Start hiring professionals like a professional. Post your free job on linkedin.com/spoken today.
There were days, though, when you had to suffer defeat. How did you cope with that? I mean, one minute you're up on a high and the next minute you're down on the ground. How did you cope with defeat?
I always, from the time I was very young, like if you play inter-county hurling for Meath, you're well used to getting beaten for 20 years, right? But you learn, like I remember one day we played Kilkenny and the bet is 33 points. And coming off the field, one of the lads said to me, Shawnee, we weren't so bad. I said, Flip, we'll go out on Monday and we'll try and get better. And that would always have been my attitude. I never believed you had to keep telling people about what they've done wrong, tell them what you can do to put it right. That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
but had you to take a lot of criticism over the years? Did you have to listen to a lot of, the hurlers on the ditch?
Yeah, but that time I would call him, like when he lost 15 pounds weight in that week.
Oh, he did not.
He did, yeah. That I learned. And Sergeant McGrath said he wanted to go to Croke Park. And luckily enough, it cleared on that Thursday night, Friday. And he did 20 minutes to pitch in Navan on Saturday, 20 minutes to pitch in Port Monica Sunday morning. And the doc said 20 minutes, no longer, danger of cardiac arrest. But I never told the story because at the time, like, if something had gone wrong on him, at least he got the chance to play. He actually got Footballer of the Year that year. You know?
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. My gosh. Over the years, everybody's got an opinion on Gaelic football. There's a bit of talk at the moment about the criticism that referees get. What do you think we need to do about that? I mean, do we need to change the culture so that we're not always yapping and dragging? And
our Shawnee wouldn't know whether a ball is pumped or stuffed. But he played rugby in Belvedere for first year. They never criticised a referee. And one day, the pitches were all taken up and their group were put on the soccer pitch and they had a soccer match. Every decision was queried. And when I was a very young man, in 58, I was in Old Trafford. And we were lucky enough to meet a man called Bobby Charlton. Oh. And he always told us, never question the referee. He'll never change his decision. It's an attitude.
Is it taught? Is it part of a culture? Can you teach it?
Like, he's not going to change his mind. I think they should be canonised. Now, are there ones that drive you mad? Of course they are, because they're human. And like, I spoke to 5 different Uachtarans about this. The assessors are in the middle of a stand looking at a match. And I brought 5 different presidents to the back of the canal end and then the back of to the hill. Now I said, just look down there. When you're up on that stand, you have a totally different vision. You cannot see everything. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a second referee, have a second referee. Like, it's very daunting because like everything is criticised to the nth degree now. You understand and analyse and why do this, why do... Hang on, lads. It's football, it's hurling. It's probably the most thankless job in the game, and yet brave people do it. Mm-hmm. And it can drive you around the twist.
And Sean, when you look back, well, first of all, when you took over the Meath team, and then 23 years later, when you look back on your illustrious career, I mean, with 4 All-Ireland titles and 3 National League titles and Leinster, how many Leinsters?
8,
A lot.
8, a lot.
Beaten 7. And
you know, you must feel very satisfied, gratified and proud. You know, and a free man of Meath. The only free man of Meath.
Oh, that's embarrassing but wonderful. And but I took that as a compliment. It was a very humbling time. You could never run away with yourself. And that's the beauty of sport. I'm just thankful for the trust that was put in me. But do I feel that I could have done things differently or things differently in some matches? Of course I do. Like if you don't recognise that I didn't do that right or we got that wrong. But that's what makes you better. The thing more than anything else you learn, it's a camaraderie, it's a companionship. But it's also, because they're hurling and football, their games are different. Like to every other sort of nation in Europe and the world, they are now being played there. But this is what makes us different. What drives me mad, I was on the rules committee for a while. The very first meeting I went to said, lads, the founding fathers, they wrote directives for the game. There's a big difference in directives and a rule. What was going to make it better or make it work? And I think we've got to stand back and look at that because there's about 85 or 6 rules in Gaelic football. If you're playing soccer, there's about 15 or 20 at the very most. Rugby you'd nearly want a computer to understand the way it is. But like, why complicate it? Why not have a restructure of it and make it simpler? Because it's not that difficult. Playing with words.
How did you prepare for a game? You know, did you have a strategy that you stuck to all the way through?
There's an old Italian philosopher, Alfieri, talked about continuity of time, not allowing yourself to be distracted, how multiply the value of it. And I would be like that. I'd be very difficult. In normal conversation, I'm everywhere. But when I'm involved in a sport or somebody comes into me at home, that's where my attention is. It doesn't matter about anything else. And
did Tina never mind that? But you had a big family. She had a lot of responsibility.
She was brilliant. There was no question. There was never a problem. Even when I wanted to stop, I said, well, don't let me stop you. Whatever you want to do. But there was something I wanted to do, it needed to be done. And I knew that it wouldn't be done by the board. They thought I'd be vexed after us. No, I said, I've had the time of my life, which I have. And things move on and things change. And even the way it's played, the game is played today, it is so different than the way it was. Can it be hard to look at? Of course it can. Players nowadays, they love the science, they love the strategy, they love the movements. Do you understand? Whereas from the year I come from, you love the madness of it. You love the risk. You love trusting your fellow player up the field. I would dearly hope that some of that would come back. Do you understand? Jimmy McGuinness was on the telly one night with Ryan Tubridy. And like what he achieved with Donegal was immense. But he went on about the sacrifices that the players made. And I was talking to Brian Cody first thing the next morning. And Brian would be of the same ilk as myself. Like, hang on, if you want to play, you play. That's it. And then I was talking to Dr. Con Murphy below Cork. And I said, Con, did your father, did he do much weights? Well, Sean, as you know, he said, we lived on Bear Island. And he said, you have an All-Ireland semi-final. My father put the boat in the water and he'd row across the mainland. It was a quarter of an hour. He'd cycled to Bantry, 16 miles, and he took a car from there to bring him up to Cant Station in Cork. We'd get the breakfast on the train, we'd play the match, we'd get our dinner on her coming home, we'd get off the train, into the car, down to Bantry.
Back in the boat.
No, cycle 16, cycle 16, and boat in the water again.
It's like an Ironman marathon.
Yeah. So like the way everything's changed, we're blessed with all the facilities that we have, and there's nothing wrong with having them, but we should appreciate them as well. And the big thing for me is appreciating the time. So many people, it's their sport, and let's lose too much sight of that.
You never got a penny all those years. I mean, this isn't extraordinary. That's the amateur voluntary code of the GAA, isn't it?
The essence of it.
If I got paid, I would never have done what I did. And the reason I'm saying that is because then there's a different onus on you. You have to do it. It's a job. Do you follow me?
My goodness, you're sitting opposite us, Sean, and I know that you recently celebrated your 80th birthday. You are the picture of health, but you have had a few brushes with ill health.
I did,
what was that like?
It was an education, Mary.
But for somebody who's so vibrant and always on the go, running, cycling. I've seen you cycle around to get there quicker.
Yeah, look,
around your house.
It's somebody came into the clinic that I hadn't seen for 20 years. I put my arms around her and she gave me a hug and I pulled a muscle. And I had a habit of going for a checkup every year. And I was due one. That was on a Thursday, the following Wednesday. And I rang the clinic, which is a sports clinic. And Lisa said, come on over, Ray, I'll have a look at you. Anyhow, it turned out that 3 days later, that went over to the place and Ray Moran came in, he put his arm around me and arm around Tina. He said, look, we think you're in trouble. We think you have a tumour. And you have an appointment tomorrow morning with Liam Grogan. That was at 7 o'clock. Great chap. And he rang me the next day. He said, look, there's a new treatment. It's not in our hospital, but I think you would be an ideal candidate for it. And part of the treatment at the time was that I had to take, a testosterone suppressant because it's a testosterone-driven tumour. And my muscles all wasted. And I never had pains or aches in my life. My right knee dislocated, my left knee dislocated. And I was like a duck. And I'm small enough as it is. But I never thought I wasn't going to get right. It was an awful fright for Tina. That was the first time in 17 years she'd come to me when I was going for a checkup. And she nearly wanted to hit Ray, you know what I mean? I'm thankful to him at the same time. She said to me on the way to Richmond or to Bournemouth the next day, why do you think you got it? I said, I've no idea, but so maybe I'm better able to deal with it. By December, that happened in June, I had the procedure done and it was brachytherapy. That finished then in March. And the 15th of April, I had my right knee replaced and a titanium shaft put in my leg. 6 weeks later, I got the same on the other side. And after about 5 or 6 years, I fell one day and I came down to my scrotum. And it was so painful. And it was the day before my 70th birthday. I'm up in the bed to change my clothes and coming down for a party for me. And I was doing exercise and whatever happened, whatever way I moved, a ligament moved and suddenly all the swelling went down. That was on the 12th of December. And when I went into the matter on the 7th of January, I knew there was something wrong. But all my scans were clear. Everything was clear. And the consultant, he said he'd like me to get another opinion. He sent me to John McCaffrey. And it was amazing because he came across a case similar within his own hospital. And there was a scanner. There was one in Cologne, there was one in Switzerland, there was one in Heidelberg. I said I'd go to Heidelberg. A Ligand scanner, which acts like a magnet. And it showed up 3 lymph nodes that had escaped from the capsule of the prostate. Oh. And I'm back in the clinic in 13 weeks. And from that day to this, I've never looked back. So I'm more mobile when I was 80 than I was when I was 70.
But it must have been a very vulnerable time in your life, was it?
An epiphany in one way, and very vulnerable in another, because Shawty was 16 and Oren wasn't 5, and we have 6 kids, and Tina's 18 years younger than I am. And that was some handful to put on her. So she told Shawty, she told Kieran, and Dara wasn't even 12. So eventually, before he started the school in September, she told him. They would know what a tumour was, the consequences of it. So there's no point burdening them on it. But a very lonely place for her, because when we left the hospital, we were told, tell the people who work with you and tell your family. And family are great, but sometimes family are not the ones to talk to about things. Some of them are Mother McCree's, can't get enough bad news, you know what I mean? And don't mind, you're all right, there's not a bother, and you should carry on. And but that was tough for Tina, because she felt if she told one, they'd tell everybody else. And she didn't want the kids going down the street and people talking to them about it. And she handled it brilliant. She lost about 7.5 kilos in 6 months. And the night before I went in to have the procedure done, the operation, the matter, Jerry McEnty came in 12:30 at night. And he said, Sean, you're looking well, Tina. You look awful. You look dreadful. You know what I mean? Like, as direct as you come, you know what I mean? But Jerry would always tell you the truth, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
that's for sure.
And look after you. If you honestly ask me, the thing that affected me most in my life would have been the COVID.
Really?
In what way did you find it
I
difficult?
lost 10 kilos in 6 days, got pneumonia. And from not being sick, going in to give bloods and being held in. And it frightened me in a way that nothing ever scared me before.
What were you frightened of?
The uncertainty. No idea where I was going or what I was doing. In the war, the second day, there was a man from Goa, there was a man from Nobber. And with the masks, the man from Nobber couldn't understand him at all. The man from Goa was as clear as a whistle. It was all in your head. And then, the doctor, he rings you from outside the ward. He said, I'll put my head around the door and doesn't come into you. You know what I mean? Like, that's scary stuff. You know what I mean? That's like leprosy stuff. When I went home, I stayed in bed for about 3 days. The doctor rang me, would you ever get out of that bed? You're the safest person in the place. I was going to infect the whole of Ireland. Do you know what I mean?
One of the things that comes across always with you is a deep sense of gratitude for the life that you've had.
Yeah.
And I think that's an extraordinary thing because you've put a lot into creating, people talk about, there used to be an Irish expression, you make your luck, he's lucky, but you're a man who made your luck the hard way, investing in life. If you could change anything, if there was anything that, about today or yesterday that you could change, what would it be?
I suppose I might have got married younger to have the kids, be able to spend more time with them. You understand? Because that was an amazing journey.
What age were you when you got married?
47.
And how did it come about?
Well, Tina saw the queue outside the door looking for me.
She jumped the queue.
You must have been a very eligible bachelor by then.
I'll tell you what it was. There were 8 girls who came when they were about 11 or 12. And they came into the kitchen every day to my mother, and she made tea for them, or she made soup for them. She taught them all to smoke. She did all the good things, yeah. But they absolutely loved my mother, and she was a storyteller. And when they got older, some of them would work at the herbs, some of them would work inside, and so on. And Tina was one of those. She always wanted to be a nurse. She went back, got a better leaving. She got her leaving at 16, but she got a better one, and she went to study, and she did nursing. But she loved the work of the thought-provoking charity. See, they don't take vows. And she wanted to check it out. She went to the Rue de Bac in Paris to check it out. Sister Frances opens the door. She said, what are you doing? Oh, just come over to have a look, see around the place. But and she joined the thought-provoking charity. She had the time of her life doing exactly what she wanted to do. The happiest place she ever was West Belfast. And there were 4 sisters in the house, 4 of the nuns, right? House was condemned. You could see daylight out through the wall. They'd take the kids every day and put them in the black taxis and they bring them into Belfast. And the extraordinary thing at the time, there were no men around. They were all in Long Kesh. But the influence that all of that had, the years that you could go and you couldn't go. And she would amaze people up there. She knows so much about the place. But when my mother died in 1989, she looked to go to her funeral. And she was somebody that she wrote to every 2 or 3 months. She wrote to my mother, Mammy returned the letter. And they wouldn't let her go. So she came to the funeral, and
she broke the rule.
3 or 4 months later, she left. And now there was about 40 years between her and the nearest age group, but she loved it. She loved the work. She loved the sisters, and she had gotten emigration to Australia as a nurse, papers, the whole lot. And as it would have been the norm, she called into our house one night, and I was going out to a 25th wedding anniversary. And I left there, I was going to a 21st birthday party, one that has the team. And I said, you know what, I'm not going, I'm going home. And we went in, we're in the house chatting away. She was talking, she said, I don't know what to do about Australia. I said, look, if you change your mind, maybe you'd hang around a bit with me. And the doorbell rang, 2 o'clock in the morning. Owen Lynch, next door neighbour of her mother and father's. Another neighbour had died, very upset. Tina makes tea for us, and she heads on home. And 2 weeks later, even though we all live in the one village, all at the wake, all at the funeral. I said, did you think any more of what I said to you? Well, you asked me to marry you. Well, so to think about it.
She's very direct.
All right. That was it. That was in August, and we got married in December.
Good Lord.
And Shawnee was born.
And you'd known her really all your life.
All her life, and her mother and father.
And how come your mother hadn't seen the possibility, or had she? Of a
I always
match.
said she did the praying, I did the work.
Yeah,
Of course, but it was just, look.
Was your mother not ready to give up on you?
Huh?
Was your mother not ready to give up on you as a marriageable person? No, she wasn't.
No, mothers don't do that.
They don't.
No, they don't. No. But no,
and Sean, did you always think you would marry?
It never was an obsession with me. I always thought I would marry. But until at 37, I would never want to get too involved because I was going to be a priest.
You were thinking of priesthood.
Yeah.
And but it didn't stop me from going out and having girlfriends or whatever it was. You know what I mean? But I could never, there was a line that would never go beyond. So because that was what I wanted to do. That was personal. That was not for talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Today I was in Croke Park, and I was saying I was coming here to talk to you, and there must have been 20 people in the room, and 20 people turned around and said, "Oh, Sean Boylan, he's just lovely. He's just lovely." What a nice thing to have people say about you.
People are nice though.
Isn't it?
And you're so kind. You're so kind.
People do
and
love you.
helpful.
They do love you. They see you.
Don't know the other way.
Yeah.
Just being in your company, I mean, you can't but be touched by your kind of your joy, your joie de vivre, Sean. It's been an absolute privilege to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
And so we come to the close of yet another episode of Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
A big thank you, as always, to our producer, Enda Grace.
And also to our researcher, Anne-Marie Staunton.
And can I also acknowledge our sponsors, Kildare County Council, whose support makes the podcast possible.
We hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and don't forget to follow the podcast to receive notifications for every new episode.
So from beautiful Allenwood here in County Kildare, bye for now. Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Proudly sponsored by Kildare County Council.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Are you a reality TV junkie?
Do you ever think, dang, I wish I had someone to talk to about all the trash TV that I watch?
Well, look no further, garbage lover, because Reality Gaze is a podcast for you. Hello, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Poodle, and we're the Reality Gaze. We talk about all your favorite unscripted shows like The Golden Bachelor, Love is Blind, and TLC's big, messy behemoth, 90 Day Fiancé.
And if you're driving to work, folding laundry, or just pretending to listen to your husband talk about sports,
just put on the pod, and you've instantly got two gay besties spilling all the tea and reading these people for filth.
So come at us, y'all. Find Reality Gaze wherever you listen to podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.